it becomes a pillar of your business. It becomes good business sense. It becomes future-proofing your business. So when you're talking about, say, for example, that you're talking about housekeeping in a hotel, the conversation automatically includes refills, eco-friendly. It's not something that you go through the motions, or we better think about the eco side.
I think it'd be really cool to start just at how you got into sustainability. What was that? Was there a kind of tangible tipping point that you noticed within your career, or is it something that you've always done? Or yeah, just what's been your journey, and what was that moment where you were like, I'm going to commit my career to sustainability?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you know, I've been in marketing a long time, since the late 80s. So I worked in trade shows and specifically in fashion. So I was around at the time, really, that fast fashion was born. And I was part of that generation who was encouraging people to consume more, to be not to be wasteful on purpose. We didn't realize what we were doing then, but I was part of that generation. And so yeah, I had a career. I then left to have a family, but continued to work with my husband, who ran a landscaping company. So I love marketing, so I kept my skills going, kept myself current, and I did various things, yeah, during that time. And one of the things that I got involved in was breast cancer. I haven't had breast cancer myself, but I had a health challenge of my own, an autoimmune disease. And I started to get very interested in what could have caused that. It was after a bout of food poisoning on my honeymoon, unfortunately. But anyway, so at that point, I started to get interested in what I could do for myself. So it came from a place of my own health. But I very quickly realized I changed my diet to organic. I quickly realized all the chemicals, all the stuff that was going into the environment, into our waterways, with putting it on our skin. And so I started my sustainability journey, if you like, in my personal life, and changed my own life, and and saw the benefits of that to me personally. And through that, I got involved with a breast cancer charity whose mission was very much about educating people about chemicals. And now people are much more aware than they were then. People know that there's all this stuff in the environment, etc. So my journey in sustainability started from a personal journey. Obviously, very quickly realized that what was good for me, for my health, was good for the planet. So I did that. I went into companies and I did talks at sort of lunchtime talks, the women there talking about all the prevention side of things. That's always been my role, my interest. So looking, diet, exercise, avoiding chemicals, managing stress, all the things that we all talk about today. And maybe I was a little bit ahead of myself. I often say that about myself, but there were always a few people in the room who it resonated with. So I did that for a while, but it was quite hard work because companies weren't really on the sort of prevention well-being journey then. So I decided, why don't I go back into marketing? Because I got myself into some big companies, big. Some of the big ad agencies like Ogilvy, WPP. I spoke with Centrica, who were gas, and so I got into the big companies. So I thought, well, I can still do this marketing game, and that's when I decided to launch myself as just a freelancer, helping people marketing strategy and implementation. And I did that for about a year. And I partnered with an accountant, so we actually offered the financial stuff. And my main client then, through him, was an IT company, but their main client was oil and gas. Sort of small companies doing exploration, and I just didn't really feel comfortable with it. So after working with them for about a year, I thought, I need to do a number on myself. What makes me different to any other marketing freelance? And then that's when I thought, well, I need to be true to myself, and I want to help businesses who want to do ethical marketing, as I called it then. So that's when I sort of relaunched myself, and then I started to work with brands who were already sustainable. I didn't call it that then. This was about over 10 years ago now. So I worked with a couple of household cleaning brands, for example. I then got involved in a big campaigning organization, Fashion Revolution, who have done an amazing job of, being very, very instrumental in transforming the fashion industry. And then I also worked with Breast Cancer UK, the charity that I met in the early days, and set up an ambassador program for them. Then my story is quite long, as you can tell, so I'm nearly finished. Then in the middle of all of this, we moved to Italy for a simpler life. It's a country we've always wanted to live in. And there was something called Brexit, which happened. So we didn't really want to be part of that. My husband's is Irish anyway, so it didn't matter. So we came here. We were going to build our own eco house, probably a little bit gung-ho. And luckily we saw the house we're in now, which is quite a big house, but they were running the downstairs as a holiday apartment. So we decided that we would continue that. So I found myself in green tourism, if you like. And what was great about running that is I could put all my personal choices into running the property here, so we were very lucky that it was an eco house. It had all the renewables, which I've had to learn a lot about, so that's been great. But I was able to make sure we only had organic cleaning products and guest personal care products. Everything that we do is through that sustainability lens. So through that I started to get involved in green tourism, as I said, and sort of moving forward, I worked with a sustainable tourism company in America that focused on hotels. And then I mentioned on a previous conversation, I then met Bob Garner here, who is he's totally got the same mindset as me. He's been running his property. He's got 6 apartments for 17 years now. And through him, I started to get a voice within the vacation rental industry, which is the point I've got to now. So I'm working with Bob. He's launched something that we're going to talk about in a minute. And suddenly I've got people now coming to me who want to be involved in sustainable tourism. So that's become a bit of a niche for me, but I also obviously have experience in fashion. Because I worked in trade shows, but I then moved to consumer facing. I worked for a menswear retailer, and then I also have a lot of experience in the beauty and personal care sector, and I've worked in events. So I have 4 sort of niches, but the tourism one seems to be growing, and particularly vacation rental, because I'm actually doing it, aren't I? I'm actually living it myself. So that's quite a long journey. So my journey started from the point of personal health, what we're doing to the environment, to waterways, etc., with chemicals. I then got very involved into the people side with workers' rights, working Fashion Revolution, who have since obviously moved into fabrics and chemicals. And then lastly, I learned about the whole climate change thing, that because I'm not a scientist, so that's the bit I found hardest. And I think that's the bit most people find hardest to relate to. That's another conversation.
A great story. I think you've kind of brought us full circle there in the way that you said that you started off with a personal, I suppose, experience, and then you're now working predominantly in this space where you've got personal experience. And it reminds me of that sort of famous quote. Yesterday I was clever, so I want to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. I think there's kind of that pattern that's running through your life of personal experiences and really kind of running with that, and then expanding that outwards and helping others kind of come on your journey, to, for one of a better term. So that's really, really interesting. I think one of the things you mentioned, if we kind of go back, is that you love marketing. So I'm really interested in why you love marketing. I'm not a marketeer, so it'd be interesting to kind of dive into that. But then also, what role, I suppose, why marketing is so important within sustainability? Why you think that's a crucial part of it? If you've got a sustainability internal team, why is it really important that, as well as having someone that can do a sustainability strategy, maybe a net zero strategy, someone that is more science focused, why is it also important to have someone on that kind of communications marketing side in that team as an equal player? So
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I guess I love marketing because I'm very interested in people. I'm very interested in their motivations, what inspires them to make decisions. And I think this is very relevant in terms of sustainability, because what we need to do is we need to change people's behavior. If we're going, the climate crisis doesn't really resonate. Like I said earlier, it's science, it's complicated. Excuse me. It doesn't really resonate with people's everyday lives, unless maybe they experience flooding, which we've had here in where I live in Italy. I mean, there's been horrendous floods in the region above us in Emilia-Romagna. People have lost everything. And that will include businesses. And we've had horrendous flooding here as well. You know, we've been affected by it personally. So people don't see things as an emergency until it actually happens to them. A bit like me, a lot of people make changes in their personal lives when they have a health challenge. So I think that we need, in terms of the climate crisis, it is the most urgent part of sustainability, but I feel a lot of people don't really get it, how it applies to them in their everyday lives. So I think with marketing, we have, I say, I've been part of the generation that has created overconsumption, made people feel that the answer to life is just building up more stuff. And that's changing, that attitude, particularly with younger generations like you. You know, you're more interested in experiences than acquiring more stuff. And so we can see the power of marketing, the power we have to actually change people's opinions and their behaviors. And we now need to galvanize that power that we have as marketers to make it, you know, to do something for the good of humanity. And I think we have to, I always say that people buy with emotion and then they justify it with logic. So you need to tap into these emotions. I listened to a great podcast, I don't really listen, it's called Optimism and Outrage. And they had a marketing guy on the other day, forgotten his name now, that's terrible, but I put it in my newsletter and I probably will post about it. But he sort of said, you know, we've used all the wrong language. You know, climate crisis, climate change doesn't mean anything to people. We'd started saying about pollution, things that people can understand. We said, but we're stuck with it. And net zero, all this stuff, what does it really mean? It doesn't really mean anything to people and to businesses, really. So what he was saying is, you know, they did a test where they showed people a video about, you know, extreme weather events and stuff like that, and net zero and things. And then they showed a video about a guy talking to his child and saying, you know, I know you're concerned. There's eco-anxiety amongst kids, isn't there? You know, and that, you know, if your child said to you, you probably heard this before, you know, you knew all this stuff, why didn't you do anything? So I would say, I think that most business owners, if you ask them, you know, would you like to do something to be involved in saving the planet? Very few are so cynical. They say, no, I don't give a damn about that. You know, I just want to make money. I don't think many would say that, but what they don't know is how to make it relevant to their business. So that's the other thing. When you get involved in sustainability as a business, you need to understand how it's relevant to your business, particularly with all the new legislation coming around greenwashing. So you need to understand the brand personality of that company, and then work out what part of sustainability is going to fit with them. You know, doing things around climate change in terms of, you know, cost savings, you know, like particularly in vacation rentals, you know, if you sort of save money on energy, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? You know, why wouldn't you do it? But when it comes to things like in tourism, we are potentially destroying the destinations that we're promoting. You know, if my destination is flooded, you know, I don't have a business. And so it makes sense for me to possibly get involved in conservation in my area, or if I'm in a coastal location. So I always say, as a business, think about, you know, and talk to your staff as well, you know, what motivates them. And so often I say 9 times out of 10, there are staff in your business who are really keen to get involved. I hear this time and time again from CEOs, and they say, actually, we had too many people who want to be involved, you know, but we now have a team, and they are the ones who will help you take it forward and make you a leader, make you a trailblazer, I say. And I think sustainability needs to not be seen as an add-on. It becomes a pillar of your business. It becomes good business sense. It becomes future-proofing your business. So when you're talking about, say, for example, that you're talking about housekeeping in a hotel, you know, the conversation automatically includes refills, eco-friendly. It's not something that you go through the motion and think, oh, we better think about the eco side. We could do this. It just becomes good business sense. So I think marketing has a really important role, because if we're going to make these things happen, if we don't get people to understand and want to be part of it, then, you know, nothing will happen. You know, we're not going to make, you know, we're not going to halve our emissions by 2030 unless there's a massive shift. And I think too many people just think, they just hear all this stuff droning on about net zero. I mean, most people don't understand what that means, even people in business. You know, we need to talk in terms that people understand and that actually relates to their daily lives and to what they're doing in their business. So does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. And a couple of things. One is, I don't know, maybe I pick up that you've got a real belief in your ability and the ability of other marketing people within this space to really change and shift behavior in a way that maybe someone that isn't a marketeer or doesn't understand how to market things wouldn't maybe have that same belief. Because you kind of tapping into what I was going to ask you as well, is one of the things you mentioned a couple of times is like that sort of generational piece, and that you're part of that generation that kind of drove this overconsumption. So maybe there's a sense that, well, if we got ourselves into that position, we can also get ourselves out of it by promoting and advertising a different life, or form of life, or way of being on this planet. But just kind of tapping into that question, one of the things I was going to ask you is, do you feel a sense of personal responsibility for having kind of grown up through that era, and then now kind of going, actually, I'm going to shift? Like, one of the things I've loved about developing Sustainable Pathways and as we're building it, we've had a chance to speak to so many different people and of different generations. And yeah, I'd be interested to know from your side, is that something that you actually take personal responsibility and go, actually, I'm going to make a career out of this, I'm going to really drive this change while I can? And is that something that more people should do, is just take, we can't control everything, but what we can do is take personal responsibility? And that seems to be a thread that's kind of throughout your story anyway. But yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think partly yes, because I am very driven by making a difference. You can probably tell that. It sounds a bit cheesy, but that's what excites me. However, I don't believe in guilt, naming, shaming. I feel that gets us nowhere. I much prefer to inspire people. And what really excites me is that, older generations, we've been part of the problems, you know, in the most case, unknowingly. So there's no point in beating ourselves up about it. I think what we need to do is think, right, this has happened, but now we need to think of ways that we can be involved in making changes. And actually, as the older generation, what we do have is we have experience. We know what it was like before, and we've seen what it's like after. We also potentially have, and I'm not saying this about me, but we potentially have more influence, more connections. And again, not just about me, but we potentially have more resources, more funds at our disposal. So if we can get older generations to then connect with the young, which I love talking to young people, you know, I do all the time, and it just makes me laugh that they want to talk to me. They say, oh, you know all this stuff. Yeah, but you also have the power, because you have that enthusiasm. You don't have the sort of fear that often comes with experience. And I think if you put those generations together, that we can achieve amazing things. So that's what drives me. And I think what we need is we need to excite people about getting involved in sustainability. You know, so we need to get on board some, and it's happening already. You know, there are some big names out there, celebrities, influencers who are getting involved, but it's not enough. We need to, so little philanthropy goes into environmental projects and things. I think it's like 1%, something ridiculous, 1 to 3%. Whereas think of all those philanthropists who are giving money to art, for example. Now, I'm not saying that art is not worthy, it is, but what if they gave some of their money rather than to art projects, that they put their money into environment? It's just having a different, but they would probably never think about that at the moment. So it's using all the resources we have and getting on people of all generations. But I often think that the middle generation are the one who are launching businesses, millennials as well, who can decide that they're going to do something for the good of the planet and can see that model actually works. There are plenty of businesses launching who have that as one of their main pillars, and they are profitable. And also they get that sense of being part of something bigger than themselves. And we live in an age of growing loneliness, feeling detached, isolated. When you get involved in something as big as saving the planet, you have that sense of belonging, and you have that sense of being greater than yourself. And it's very important, I think, that we work together, because it is such a massive task, and that we all use the skills that we have to create that end goal of creating, saving the planet and creating a fairer world, which I think is a really important part of sustainability as well.
Well said. Really cool. That was very inspiring. I feel like I want to just go out and jump from my desk at the moment. Okay, that was just really, really, you really captured that. Thank you. So just kind of, I suppose we've got about 10 minutes left. So just keen to kind of, one of the other things that we've mentioned, we've kind of got marketing, got your personal story. You've also, as you were saying there towards the end of your personal story, now heavily involved in the kind of tourism sector. So you're the co-owner of Villa in the Vineyard. Just keen to kind of learn about, what is sustainable tourism? What kind of experience, what have you learned throughout this sort of period of going through this yourself? And what can you maybe share with others around maybe people looking to get into it, maybe people looking to go on holiday, and how could they kind of embrace sustainable tourism, all this sort of stuff? What would you share?
I mean, I've learned a lot about renewables, as I said. That has been a journey, and I've had to learn it in Italian as well. Vocabulary that is not me, and I say I'm a wordsmith, I'm not a scientist, but I have found it fascinating, and now I feel actually quite confident that I could talk to someone about installing solar panels or heat pumps and all this technology that we have. And interesting enough, one thing I do find is that guests who come here, because that sustainability is very much the core of Villa in the Vineyard, if you go onto our website, you'll see that that's what we're about. I call it conscious luxury. So it's not about luxury in terms of, bling and gold and leather and chandeliers. And it's about allowing people to have an authentic experience whilst they're here, but also to have the comfort they expect. So we have underfloor cooling powered by heat pump, powered by solar panels, which is so much healthier, not noisy, unlike aircon, for example. We have an organic vegetable garden that guests can help themselves to vegetables, and we have fruit, and they can prepare it in their kitchen. So we're finding a lot of guests are coming here because they want to detox, they want to chill out, but they also there's lots of stats out there about how travelers are looking for sustainable places, and this is really growing. And Booking.com already have a sustainability travel sustainable scheme where you can actually filter on sustainable properties. There's a whole thing in the industry about making claims, so having to substantiate claims. So I'm actually working with two of the organizations who are doing sort of sustainable badging, which is properly accredited, so that properties can show that they have gone through a process. So we know that travelers, way people travel has changed. Like I said earlier, people aren't looking for just lying on they're not just looking for, they're looking for experiences. So it's not about going on holiday and lying on the beach for 2 weeks like I did when I was young, just to come back with a suntan. You know, people aren't interested. They want to experience the local culture, and we very much promote. You know, we're in the vineyard, so we have the neighbouring farming family who rent the land to them, and they grow their vines, following organic practices, regenerative practices. So in the winter, they have sheep coming through who are like mowing the grass, because they let all the wildflowers grow up for nitrogen in the winter. They come and mow the grass with sheep, and they're also fertilizing it at the same time. Wow. So, you know, and then our guests can go up and taste the wines in the neighboring vineyard. They can see what's happening here. So in terms of tourism, people are definitely looking for a more authentic experience, and they're actively searching. So for anyone who is running a vacation rental, this is what guests are expecting to see. And it doesn't have to be, you know, that you go and install solar panels. You know, it can just be simple things like buying all your toiletries and cleaning products in refills, choosing eco-friendly, doing things like give guests a reusable shopping bag rather than getting them to go and, you know, keep taking plastic bags. Give them water bottles that can be refilled so they don't keep buying plastic bottles. Just really simple things, but also connecting them into the culture and heritage of the place where you are. And we have a fantastic digital guide that allows us to do that, and it has a Making a Difference section where we can explain what we're doing. And guests are really, we get testimonials, reviews from guests actually mentioning our sustainability practices. And also I actually do like guided tours of our control room. So people are really interested in the tech, you know, and because they say, well, I'm actually putting a heat pump in at home. Can you explain to me about this? So I think the fact that we can inspire guests as well, you know, by some of the products, I think, oh, you know, yeah, I really ought to look into changing my washing up liquid. Or, you know, people see what we're doing here, and they don't see it that we're sort of lecturing or preaching them, which maybe they might have done a few years ago. Now people see it as a way to me, sustainable products are actually the optimum in general. You know, that you're giving people the best that you can. It's not seen as it's never a compromise, I always say. So in the tourism industry, you know, I said before, we have a vested interest to protect the destinations that we're in. Industry as a whole has a massive footprint. It employs a massive amount of people who need to be fairly treated, you know, and I'm talking about hotels, I'm talking about the whole tourism industry. There's a lot of issues around diversity and inclusion. There's a lot of issues around having a negative impact in communities. And these are all things that will resonate with your guests. If you're actually involved in the local community, that's what they want to see, you know, and if you involve them actively in the community as well, then, you know, that's a really good thing. So I think the tourism industry has a long way to go. The elephant in the room is probably flying as well. But train travel is really ramping up. People are starting to use electric vehicles, certainly where we are in Europe. You know, we have charging stations all around us. We haven't invested one ourselves yet because we're only one place, you know, and there's one just up the road, so it's not a big deal. So for the tourism industry, I think we have a lot to do. And as I say, I feel we're starting to see the momentum now, which is fantastic.
Well, sounds as on the kind of generational piece, one of the things that people my age group tend to throw around on their Instagram posts, and I'm sure you'll get this as well, is wholesome vibes. And it sounds like a very wholesome experience that you're kind of creating, and it's what I think a lot of people are searching for now. Is when they go away. Well, I was away there in Wales over the weekend, and someone said, was it a wholesome experience? And I think that's something that we're really trying to, people, a lot of friends that I know try and go after. So I think that's kind of where you can really see the demand for that now. And I think it sounds, and also you're learning, right? Like people are coming to you and learning about the control room. That's fascinating. And then, so it's not just you're not just going to go and sit on the beach and drink, you know, a few cocktails and get yourself burnt. You're actually, it's a more full experience. It's a whole experience. So,
well, I should remember that wholesome. You see, that's why I need to work with young people, because I have two daughters, and sometimes I have to say, can I say this, or is this really old fashioned? Or so, you know, and all the guys who social media and all of that is just second nature to you, you know. So that's why working with together, you know, we can make sure we're getting the right messaging out there, because what language I might use might be old fashioned, will turn young people off. But if we work together, then you can say, hey, no, you can't say, you've got to say this, you know, which I don't care. You tell me what is right. Getting the message out that I care about. I don't care, you know, whether I don't know the right words, or, you know.
Oh no, you do. It's just when you were talking about it, I just had hashtag wholesome vibes in my head there. So yeah, it's been lovely chatting to you. I could listen to you for hours. I think just the way that you speak and about your whole experience. And I think the real kind of personal journey that you've been on, I think really resonates and will resonate with a lot of people. So just to kind of wrap up, what's one thing that you would share with someone to maybe inspire them, or what's one thing that inspires you? And people can connect with you on LinkedIn, but also you've got a pro bono solution on Sustainable Pathways. So companies that want to find their brand purpose, go and get that. But yeah, in 30 seconds, what's the one thing that kind of really keeps you going?
As I said before, I think it's about making a difference, and I would encourage people that if, you know, you don't need to do everything. We all hear this. Sustainability is a journey. It's a really, you know, overused phrase, but it is. So just find the thing that motivates you and your company and the people in your company, and start with that and make it personal. Make it something that you have an emotional response to, whatever that might be, whether it's the fact that you have kids, or whether it's that you've had a health challenge yourself, or whether you know somebody who's been affected by climate change. Whatever it is, find that personal motivation. And believe me, once you get involved in sustainability, ask anybody who is, you will be hooked. Once you do one thing, it just leads on to the next thing, and it is an enriching experience. It certainly has been for me. Okay, I've had challenges in my life, but I have had, it's changed my life for the better. So please, we need everybody to be involved, and you will love this journey, and we can do it together, which is you know, a rewarding way of working as well.
Fantastic. Make it personal. That is that's fantastic. A great snippet there. I think that really, brilliant. Listen, Nikki, thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
yeah, look forward to again chatting again soon.